Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Steel Roses podcast. You're listening to Jenny. This podcast was created for women by women. I am incredibly excited this morning to introduce you to my guest, Stephanie. Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So just some background for the listeners. Stephanie and I met through a virtual course called Abundance Ever After with Kathy Heller. Amazing course, life-changing still. I still talk about it. That it's so impactful. And, I had this after the course was over. I didn't get to do a lot of the live stuff because of my regular schedule. And after it was over, I had this light bulb moment of like, oh my gosh, let me reach out to everybody and say hi and see, who I can connect with before our virtual room shut down. So that's how I met. I was able to, meet Stephanie, and we collabed a little bit via email, and she agreed to come on here and guest. So Stephanie, I want you to introduce what you're doing because I think it's so important. And I want to share some of my story too. So I'll let you introduce your website and what you're working with.
Okay. So start with what I'm working with, not the backstory.
Oh, no. You can start with the backstory and then go right into, we can transition in.
Okay. So hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm a retired party girl and a sober coach. This is a long time coming, becoming a sober coach. I never expected this at all. I was a heavy drinker from the time I was 13. That was my first blackout. Until 40 something years old, I decided to finally quit drinking on my son's 5th birthday. I woke up with a black eye. I had blacked out on his 5th birthday party. And actually his 7th birthday party is today, which is so crazy because I'm almost 2 years sober. And I'm so excited just to be the mom that I've always wanted to be at this birthday party today and be present and not be overwhelmed. And so I come from a long line of alcoholic women, actually, and they were, one made it very glamorous and fun, and she was always having cocktail parties and sequins. And the other, which was my mom, died at 54 from cirrhosis. She had a much harder go at alcoholism. It took her down much quicker. 54 years old. That's shocking.
Yeah.
And that wasn't enough to stop me. That wasn't like, oh, I should quit drinking, even though they told me. My mom and my grandmother said, you have to try not to drink so much and try to quit drinking. And I didn't think it was a problem then. I thought I could control it. I was smarter than them, younger than them, different than them. And then not much longer after, I found myself unable to quit and in a cycle that I just couldn't get out of. It was really sick. So after I shared my story, I didn't really share my story. I said, I'm getting sober. Today is day 1. I'm taking a walk. I posted a story on Instagram, and I didn't say I'm getting sober forever. I just said, today's my first day sober. And I showed a picture of me walking, and other women were like, what's going on? Why? And I started letting a little bit out. And the more I shared, the more they wanted. And the more I realized there was a huge need for women who were just having fun with wine, and it became something else because of the pandemic or because their kids leaving home. And it just really turned into a monster that they couldn't control. So I knew I had to step in and share. So that's what I'm doing.
That's amazing. Honestly, that's amazing. And I have to tell you, I got chills when you said today is your son's birthday and it's 2 years. Congratulations. I almost started crying. I'm going to be honest. I got a little emotional there. That's truly amazing. I'm actually really grateful you're on with me today. 2 years sober today. That's fantastic. Honestly, Stephanie, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. It's been an emotional week every time I think about that. And then this morning just kind of shocked me. His birthday was Thursday, but the birthday party that I blacked out on 2 years ago is today. It's nuts. Yeah.
And, it's crazy because I'm sure that you can look back on the past 2 years and think even 2.5 years ago, you would have never imagined where you're at today.
No, 2.5 years ago, I knew that I was in a very desperate situation, but I had almost resigned myself to giving up. I was like, I don't want to quit. I'm not going to quit. I was 30 pounds overweight. I had fatty liver, high cholesterol.
Oof.
I had my orthopedic surgeon, because I have a shoulder issue, asked me if I had diabetes. And I was like, why would he ask me? I didn't know why he would ask me that. I do have like severe reverse body dysmorphia. I think I'm like super cute. Then I see myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh. I always think, or if I see a video of myself, I'm like, oh my God, my arm is ginormous. But I think
I
that
have
I'm
that
so
problem
cute.
too, actually.
Isn't that funny?
I think I also have that problem.
So I was shocked when I found out I had fatty liver. And then when the guy asked me if I had diabetes, but looking back, I can see that. But my face was swollen. My stomach was out to here and like really hard. And it was bad. I forgot where we were going with that, but.
No, that's okay. So it's interesting. So part of, when I looked at your site, like after we had met through AEA, and I was compelled to really be like, we really need to put this on the podcast. Like, I really want to be part of this. And I want to talk about this more because, about 2.5, I think 3 years ago, I had said that like my husband and I had stopped drinking, and like, we weren't like everyday drinkers, but in the sense that it was heavy, but it was every day. And like, I would come home from work and I was definitely becoming the person that was cooking and drinking. And, as soon as the kids were in bed, like, oh, let me have a glass of wine, or let me have like those frozen daily slushy, drinks or whatever, like doing stuff like that. And to me, it was like, oh, all moms do this. This is how you unwind at the end of the day, like, whatever. And I had gone through, I was incredibly unhealthy. It's kind of like what you just mentioned. I had not been paying attention to my health. I had my twins and I didn't see a doctor for like 2.5 years. And this drinking was happening. And I was, again, like incredibly overweight. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating right. Like, just, there was like a plethora of things. My husband, he, bless his heart. Went out with my stepdaughter for her 21st birthday to help her celebrate her 21st birthday. And the day after was quite brutal for him because he was like, he was so ill from going out and being out like that. And it was like a shock for him because, he had also traditionally like was a drinker basically. And, neither of us really saw anything incredibly wrong with it until he went through that and his body started reacting really poorly. And that was like, he like cut it off right after that. He was like, I'm not doing this. He was like, I'm not going to kill myself. Like, this is horrible. And then he educated me on this. And he actually started to, during the pandemic, he actually had looked into this more. And this is how it really became like in the forefront for us, that the effects that alcohol has on your body that people don't really realize. And everyone's like, oh, it's like a social thing. And we'll get into that too, like the social pressure of it. But like the actual negative impact that alcohol has on your body, even one glass of alcohol, what it does to your body. And I think you know a little bit more about this than me. So I want to open that up for you.
Let's take a quick break.
Are you interested in podcasting but not sure where to start? My name is Jenny Benitez, and I'm here to help guide you through your podcast launch and maintenance. Check out the link in the episode description for Podcasting Unboxed, your comprehensive startup guide. I am very excited to work with you.
You just opened up so many things that I would like to talk on, which one of them is the mommy wine culture. So I went from the party girl, party, everything was fine. I was running a business. I was doing happy hours. I would only sometimes black out, sometimes make huge mistakes with my car, leave my car somewhere, get a boot, get a ticket, whatever, those kind of stupid mistakes. But I was like 20 something and in Fort Lauderdale, so totally normal. Like if you live in Fort Lauderdale and you don't have a DUI, that's like, oh, that's weird. That's funny. Congratulations. Or boots and tickets and all those things. But then I decided to have a baby and I was 35. So I was older when I decided I desperately wanted to have a baby and it had to be a boy. And I ended up achieving that goal. But I had him and I thought in the back of my mind that this would slow me down. I will definitely become the mom of the year. I'll slow down. And I actually just picked it up. I think I was a little bit depressed after having him, not knowing what to do. And that wasn't really talked about then. It was only 6 years ago, but we didn't really talk about mommies being depressed after having a baby. And all the other moms were drinking. So I was like, "Ooh, this is amazing." I knew I had a problem, but I could hide it under the mommy wine culture thing. All my mom friends were drinking, but I knew nobody was drinking like I was. I knew that I always felt like the outsider and like the one that was hiding it, because I would drink with them, say brunch, and then before brunch, I would make sure I had wine for the house when I got back and cigarettes for when I got back. And that was the case for anything. If I was going to go to a girls' night, I would make sure I had wine when I got back. Though I was like blacked out and disgusting, I would still pour another glass of wine. And I'd wake up and there'd be wine by my bed, and it was just gross. So mommy wine culture is real. And then the pandemic happened and it just became so normal. $6.7 billion was spent by the alcohol industry in 2021. While we were all sitting in front of our TVs. That was not an accident. And I want to spread that message too, that this is like, none of this is an accident, that you fell into drinking the way that you did, and it's not your fault. It was a plan. It was a plan all along, and it was for men. And then they, like cigarettes were, and then they got women to smoke to stand up for women's rights. And then kind of the same thing happening with women, and they're coming after our kids and little girls and sons too. So let that, if nothing else, because I know a lot of us are rebels and we're like, oh, well, you're not going to get me. So keep your mind open to the fact that the more money that you spend on alcohol, better for them. And then when you get sick, better for them. And even though I know you just said who you worked for, and I was like cringed a little bit.
No. Listen, like I 100%. So like I, do what I do, but like,
don't lose your job.
Yeah. It, there is a almost like a cycle out there of like, and there's a lot. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of documentaries out there too that will show like the culture that we live in is not a wellness promoted culture, but it's like a treat the sick culture.
Yeah.
And so instead of getting ahead, right, exactly. Instead of getting ahead of stuff and being like, and I've actually talked on other episodes, and this is not real applicable here, but I'll share it with you quickly, is that my family's plant-based. We don't eat meat. And that's, by design, because my husband like watched this documentary and it like blew his mind, and he put me on it. And I started investigating stuff just based off of the information in the documentary. And even in that, like the whole plant-based movement, if you look at the marketing for like meat and all the things that meat causes in your system, but then who's backing the marketing and who's backing some of these studies that are throwing like shade on plant-based culture, it's crazy how bad things are for us that are marketed directly to us. And like alcohol specifically, you're right. Like the fact that like, that's not an accident that so much money was spent on, marketing alcohol during the pandemic. We were all sitting home. They know everyone's bored, can't go out to a bar. I actually saw at one point when I was like, I had to go to a doctor's appointment or something. I've seen it down where I live now too, that people literally installed bars in their houses. And like one guy had his garage turned into a bar, and he would flip up the garage door. And it was a legitimate, I was like shocked when I drove by. I was like, he has an actual bar in his garage, and the neighbors were like gonna go. I was like, this is crazy. Like, but that's the other part of it. It's like people don't really realize it because there's that social element to it. You think it's okay. And for some people, maybe they do just have one drink or whatever, but even that one drink, honing in on like what that does. Like the first time my husband said to me, alcohol deteriorates your immune system. And I was like, get out of here. I was like, that's not accurate. And I like fought him on it for a really long time, even though I have Google right here and I could certainly look it up. I fought him on it for a really long time. And then I looked into it and I was like, oh, he's right. Like when you drink alcohol, your immune system actually gets depleted. And so if you're noticing that you're getting sick a lot, if you just give that up, that's going to make a big impact on your body.
It makes a big impact on your health in so many different ways. So your health, your immune and your gut are directly related. Your immune system and your gut. Your gut health is like the brain of your body. And if you're pouring ethanol, I never pronounce it correctly, pure alcohol into your system, which is poison, you're going to be taken down a little bit. So alcohol, 3 drinks a week. 3 drinks a week, and nobody was having 3 drinks a week. We're all having a lot more than that. Causes a 15% increase in your chances of getting breast cancer. 15%. That's like too much, I think.
That's great. That's a lot.
Dementia, heart failure. So my grandmother died having heart problems and dementia because of alcohol. Colon cancer, esophageal cancer. I mean, we're pouring straight.
You're literally poisoning your body. Yeah.
We're literally poisoning our body. Also, the chances of you getting hurt and falling because you're off balance, you're off kilter, your whole body is off. It just, even if you didn't drink 2 nights ago, your balance and your equilibrium is still off. You're still overwhelmed. You know how your hangovers last way longer than they used to. It's because you're just, it carries over. It's not, especially now that we're older. I got to the point at 40 years old that I was like, if my he was in kindergarten, if he came home with a little extra homework or something we had to do at home, it was overwhelming. Everything felt extra hard and overwhelming. And it just has given me so much more brain power. It also does actually kill your brain cells. Like when you wake up and you feel stupid from being hungover, you're actually, the gray matter in your brain is going away. But the good news is that it does come back as long as you're not too far gone. So your memory will come back a little more and your balance will come back and your liver heals really, really quickly. I had fatty liver, like I said, and then 60 days later, I didn't. And 60 days later, everything went back to normal baseline.
It's fortunate that there is the ability for the body to heal in some sense, because I know with smoking cigarettes too, like if you're a heavy smoker, if you are able to quit, with it, I think it's like 7 to 10 years, your lungs, if you're not, like, as you said, if you're not too far gone. So that's really the key here. Like if you go past a certain point, your body is not going to be able to heal itself. And, it's interesting. When I was in my 20s, I remember like you feel invincible in your 20s, that like nothing can get you in your 20s, because that's like your prime. You're feeling great there. And you basically abuse the shit out of your body. Well, flash forward like 10 or 15 years, your body is not going to continue to do that. Like our bodies are not machines. Like they are, it's a living organism that if you are not treating it properly over time, it is going to crash. It's going to die. You're not going to be able to continue to function the way that you're functioning, abusing it the way that you'd be abusing it. So there's some elements of like, if you stop at a certain point, there's still a chance to heal. There's still a chance to like get out of that. But there's also a possibility that you might pass that certain point, and they put, you see the ads on TV, not so much for alcohol, actually. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever really seen like a PSA or anything that's saying like, this is what happened because I drank alcohol. You see it a lot with cigarette smokes, but you don't see it a lot with alcohol. So that's also an interesting component too.
Well, they'll drop please drink responsibly. Like, we're not going to drink responsibly. That we're not going to drink responsibly. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what they say. That's their PSA. That's their little disclaimer. Drink responsibly.
Well, that's the other thing too. If you think about it, to like dissect it a little bit, is also, it's like they're saying, oh, please drink responsibly. That's like saying like, please smoke responsibly. Please smoke your cigarettes responsibly. How about like, you need to stop drinking? Like, but they'll never damage that industry. Like that's the big thing here is like, and not to sound like conspiracy theory, but like, if you really start looking into these kinds of things, you're speaking my language. If you really start to research it,
extremely conspiracy theory.
We research this stuff a lot at my house. Like we're very much so, we don't drink, we don't smoke. Like we plant-based, as I mentioned. Like we turned ourselves around because, as I said, like I was heavily overweight. My husband was heavily overweight. And we didn't, like me, we knew him. We didn't actually realize it at the time, like that he wasn't, he didn't look so good. Now we look back at pictures and we could see like both of our faces were puffed out. Like it was just bad all around. But now, we've shed that and we look healthier. We look better. He looks like he's nearing his 50s. He looks like he's 35. Like he looks younger than me, which is incredibly frustrating.
Of course he does.
He's 9
And he
years older
probably
than
lost
me.
more weight than you.
Oh,
And
of
yeah,
course. It was
it
faster.
wasn't a struggle for him at all to
It took me
quit.
2.5 years. It took him like 2 days. Like, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. Yep. Yep. Same here.
Um,
I remember to my husband, I was like, I am quitting drinking. He's like, let me know how that works out. He didn't believe me. I said, I'm quitting smoking. He didn't believe me on that. So it was kind of like, I got to do this because he doesn't believe me. And then I'd be like, I am 11 days sober. And he'd be like, so
it's a pretty big deal.
Like, that's a big deal, man.
That's a big deal.
It wasn't a big deal to him because he could go 11 days without drinking. So he still drinks now. Like, we went to sushi a couple days ago, and he was drinking sake, which is one of my favorite things. And early on, now it's not. It's gross. It's poison. But it was one of my favorite like rituals that we would do. We would go for sushi, we would drink sake, and then beer, and then wine, and then I'd come home and drink more wine, and then wake up hungover no matter what day it was. Luckily, he was never a red wine drinker because that would have killed me if he was sitting on the couch drinking red wine while I was trying to quit drinking red wine. So it helps if your partner does it too, and if they're understanding. But if they're not, you don't have to mention it to them. I tell a lot of, I coach one-on-one women and groups and all kinds of things, but I tell my women, like, you don't have to tell a soul. Tell me, tell our group, but don't tell your husband or your best friend who drinks with you, because they're going to say, oh, you didn't really have a drinking problem. Because in the early stages, he would have preferred that I just kept drinking and kept smoking to keep his life the same. Everything has changed since I quit. And so people aren't always going to root you on. And I know that it can prevent you from quitting sometimes because you're like, well, who will I be? What will they say? What will they think? What if I fail? There's so much fear around it. So if you're considering it, you don't really have to tell a soul. Tell me, contact me, and I will help you through it. But because any one thing they say can send you back to drinking. They'll say, you didn't really drink that much. You'll be like, you're right. I really didn't. And then you give in.
So there's two important things I want to highlight there, because I've actually talked about the one. So when you're trying to make a change for your life and you're trying to make a change for the better, you will hit a wall basically of people that are currently in your life that are going to say exactly what you just said. What are you talking about? You're crazy. You can't do it. Why would you do that? Why don't you come and hang out with me? Like, no, that's ridiculous. Don't do that. Oh, this is going to affect you socially. No one's going to want to hang out with you. You will literally hear it all. And it's crazy because it's like, I'm just trying to do something like good for myself, but you will hit a bunch of people that are in your inner circle that you've known for years that will try to stop you. And you're just trying to do something good for yourself. So I think that element that you just said, like, just, keep it to yourself. Like, it can be something private that you're just, trying to just make a better change for yourself. Eventually people will notice it.
Yourself. Don't do it by yourself, but keep it to yourself, but find yourself a tribe. At the end of this, I'll tell you where you can find me in my tribe, where we talk every week. We talk every day. We text all the time. I'll tell you where you can find us, but keep it to yourself, but don't do it by yourself, because there's things that are going to pop up that are going to be that you won't expect. And I want you to be fully prepared to know what's coming for yourself.
That was going to be the second bit that I said. It's incredibly important that you're surrounding yourself with supportive people, because going through that journey, or any journey where you're trying to like make a shift and make a change, but this one specifically, I know is difficult. Anytime you're trying to disengage from a substance, that's going to be hard. It's going to be a problem, and you are going to physically and mentally go through things that you are not ready for, and you will need people to support you. That's why I wanted Stephanie to come on, because I'm sure that there's like a lot of moms out there and women in general that are self-medicating with alcohol or self-medicating with substances. And it's like, you really have to take a step back and like kind of recognize it for what it is. When you go to the doctor and they have you fill out those forms where it's like, how many alcoholic drinks do you have a week or whatever? And I always put 0 because I don't have any.
Nobody tells the truth on that.
The first few times that I put 0, like I remember the doctor being like, really? Like 0? Good for you. And I was like, why is that so shocking? But it truly is not the norm. So the other thing that I wanted you to talk about a little bit is the social pressures, because I know, like, for me and my husband, there was like a shift, quite a shift there with people who like we hung out with really because we don't do it anymore. So it's like, oh yeah, come hang out for a barbecue, but it's like we, you can bring it. Like we're not going to stop anyone, but we just don't engage in it. And there is an element of pressure there where people are like, oh, oh, you don't drink? Like, oh, okay. And then there's like always that awkwardness to that. So I wanted you to elaborate there too, because I'm sure that you have, experience there.
I wanted to say that my heart doctor, because I started having these heart palpitations but I quit smoking and drinking like all in the same couple of weeks, and everything was felt like it was just going crazy in my body.
Crashing.
And my heart doctor was like, you don't drink. And I was excited to tell these doctors, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I was like, and my dentist, he didn't care. He busted my balls all my life about smoking. And then the day I told him I quit, he was like, good for you. And that was it. I was like expecting a parade. I was like, where is the parade? You wanted me to quit smoking. But the heart doctor was like, oh yeah, I do binge a lot, but usually just when I go on vacation. He's like, you don't drink at all? You don't have a little bit of a drink? I'm like, oh, you're a heart surgeon, man. Yeah, like how are you promoting alcohol? I did not understand that. But about the social pressure and the social situations, we, if you think about it, have built this life around us of people that are just like us, right? All my mom friends were drinkers. If they didn't drink, I didn't really hang out with them because they would look at me like I'm some crazy drinker. So we've built this life of friends that we drink around. So it does change. And when you first get sober, I always recommend that people hunker down, stay indoors, stay to and from your house. I mean, there's so many things you can do to prepare, but don't hang out with your friends. Don't find yourself at your girlfriend's house for a girls' night and watch her drink and you not drink. That is torture. You need to get your sober legs on first. Get your life together by yourself, hunker down. I tell people to act like they are in recovery in a sense that you just had surgery. You now need to lay low and take naps and give yourself rest and take all these tools and do all these things and protect yourself and protect your peace for the first 30 days. And let your friends know. You can say, I just started this running group. I have this book club. I have these women coming to my house every day and we're knitting. I am started, whatever you want to say, but there can always be an excuse for the first 30 days. Or I'm doing this quick, sober October challenge and we're not drinking this month. So if I'm MIA for a little while, that's why, like, kind of let them know in advance. And then after that 30 days, if you feel like stepping out, I still don't suggest it. I mean, those friends in the first 30 might start to fall off anyway. And you'll be like, I kind of see where things lie. But for a long time, I've had a girlfriend for, 15 something years maybe. And she drank and smoked. We drank and smoked together all the time. When my phone would ring with her name on it was a trigger. She wasn't even in town and she would send me a message and I'd be like, drinking and smoking, like time to go get a cigarette and a drink to text her back. I mean, everything used to be a trigger that, like you said, cooking and giving a bath to my kid and bedtime and story time. And there were times I told stories to him, stuttering and slurring my words. Like I am so disgusted by my drinking behavior. But in the end, whoever falls away during your sobriety is meant to fall away. And honestly, you're going to end up like growing so much more through personal development that there'll be people that you just don't want to hang out with. You don't want to go to the parties. You don't want to do that because it's not in your higher alignment of who you are now. And I know that can seem scary to become a whole new person. And it is, like, honestly, as I was deciding that this was the day that I was going to quit drinking, my whole body was trembling from fear. And it's a very scary thing to change your life. But I can promise you almost 2 years later, it's just worth it. I don't even know who this person is. I never expected to become a sober coach and to just change my life and to change the trajectory of my son's life. Now I've stopped the madness, and he's going to get a mommy that he wasn't going to get before. I would have been dead. I would have drank myself to death probably.
You said a lot of really impactful stuff that I was jotting. So I want to just circle back to. So one thing that you honed in on is, getting your sober legs first for those first 30 days. Like, again, like I want to reinforce that, like, it's incredibly important to be able to do that for yourself, because you are going to get pressure from people around you that are going to be like, what are you doing? That doesn't sound like you. Why are you changing yourself? You're fine the way you are. You know that you're not. You in your gut know, like, I'm not okay. Like, this is not okay. It's time to make a shift. So that, like, go with that. Like, you have to listen to that inner, and it sounds really cheesy, but that inner voice that's like, I think I have a problem here. If you truly think that, like, you have to go with that. Stephanie said something else. Whoever falls away is really meant to. I really want to, like, reinforce that message as well, because you might have this tribe around you at the current time that you're like, these are my people. These are like my ride or die. Like, we're all in this together. We're a family. That's nice, but you are going to notice that there will be people that just don't want to be bothered with you anymore as you're going through this journey. You have to do this for yourself. And if you have a family, for your family, as Stephanie said, she's now the mother that she really wants to be, and she has changed the trajectory of her son's life. So this is incredibly important, because I had, the reason why I want to talk about that is because I had, years ago, and this stuck with me, but years ago when I was in college, a professor had once said that women who have addictions or are in abusive relationships, and I can't remember the exact statistic, but he said something to the effect of like 80% of them will never break that cycle. And it was like this really high percentage of like women who are like, no, like, once you're down that path, you're never going to break that cycle. You're stuck in it. That's it. You're never going to do anything else. And I remember that was triggering for me, because I was like, oh no, like I can break a cycle, and that actually was a big shift for me. And that was what made me, when I was like much younger, get through, like, it helped me through my anxiety and depression and everything that I was going through. Because I was like, no, this can't be, like, I need to be able to fight against this. And you doing what you've done here and recognizing that you had a problem and changing that cycle, like, it's so big. I want to just say that to you, Stephanie, like, that's massive, because not a lot of people feel empowered. They don't feel like they can do it. And it is scary, because you are literally, you are changing your life. Like, family will feel alienated. Friends are going to feel alienated. It could be your partner feeling alienated. It's great that your husband is supportive of you and actually seeing like, wow, like there's this big positive shift here. But like, you might be married to somebody that's also an alcoholic. And like, if that's the case, like, that's even a challenge to get through, because if you're trying to stop something and they're not trying to stop, that's going to really show some sides that you're going to be like, wow, like I didn't realize that this is what I looked like. And it could even cause problems there too. And I'm sure that you've talked with people and coached people that have that problem where their partner is not giving it up.
Even in my own relationship, he has said a little too early on for me, that was a little uncomfortable, that he missed his party friend. And I was like, and if somebody says that too soon, you will drink again. So it's important just to keep your blinders on during your sobriety and just keep your head down and move in silence. And that in general, we don't want to tell everybody every step that we're taking anyway. But the thing is when you quit, like I always say, you can't see my hands, but basically I'm quitting and they're pointing at me like, oh, you don't need to quit. You don't need to quit. And they've got 3 fingers pointing back at them, because they have to now look at their drinking. If their best drinking buddy quits drinking, or their significant other quits drinking, they have to look at their own drinking. And that makes people really squirmy. I used to hate being in a room while we were all drinking. And there was this one girl, I know her name right now, and she would be sober and glowing and like fabulous. And she was a vegan and I was like, why is she here? Looking it up. Why is she in a room full of drunk people? And I just felt super uncomfortable, because she's looking at me and I'm looking at her, and it was, so people get really, really squirmy. And also it could really change the dynamics of that relationship, whether he still drinks and you don't, or they don't know if you're going to like them anymore. You don't know if you're going to like them anymore. I was worried. I was like, what if I can't stand him after this? Because I've been drinking this whole relationship for, all this time. And then I also wanted to say that if we were talking about the trajectory of my son's life, but if you never told a soul that you quit drinking, you are still going to change the lives it is
Mm-hmm.
still going to impact everyone around you. The person at the gas station, the person that you don't rear end because you're not hungover. Anybody that you come into contact with, you're going to just have different vibes. And that is
Mm-hmm.
why my brand is Vibe with Stephanie, because my vibes are so high now and they were
Yeah.
so low before, like underground low, like in a dark place. And now it's bright and light and I feel authentic and true to myself. And I'm changing the world. Even if I didn't open my mouth on my podcast or your podcast, just by being my authentic self, and I'm no longer a
Yeah.
shell of myself. And so I just think the world would be so much better of a place if we're not being held down and pushed down by this alcohol. And really, I think a lot of us do become conspiracy theorists, and even change our religions when we quit drinking, because so many things come to light that were
Mm-hmm.
before just like a veil of fog and misery and guilt and shame. And yeah. And I forgot, I'm sorry, I didn't want to keep going, but I did want to say that to the moms that are listening, I didn't go to AA because my mom went in and out of AA and she drugged me in and out of there and all about the big book and all, like all these things. And she still died. And she wrecked, like she was in with all the guys there and they would get together and relapse. And it was just a really terrible experience. So for me, when I knew I had to get sober, women will know for 5 or 7 years before they finally take the leap. You'll know deep down, and it's been nudging you and nudging you. And it takes that long to make that commitment.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole time I was like, well, if I do, I don't want to go to AA. So how am I going to do this if AA is the only way, that's all I've heard my whole life. And so I just wanted to put the bug in your ear that you don't have to go to AA. You don't have to label yourself an alcoholic. You don't have to go to rehab or do anything extreme in order to get sober. So let me give you that little bit, because I know the mommies are like, and this is one thing that I kept hearing is they're like, oh, thank God you got sober without AA, because I really didn't want to do that. Tell me what to do now. And so that is the main reason that has kept me propelling forward, is to just spread the word that you can get sober without having to go sit in a dingy basement with a bunch of men smoking cigarettes, which is what my memory is of it.
I was
And I
going to say,
know
that's interesting that's your description of it, because that's obviously what you saw.
Yeah.
But like the thing that I want to highlight here is like, exactly what you just said. Like, you don't have to go that specific route. And like people like Stephanie are now putting this out there. And actually Stephanie's incredibly accessible because your group is virtual.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I was checking out. Like, I was like, this is amazing, because I know for myself personally, like my window of time is incredibly small to do things outside of like work and kids and everything else. And I think a lot of women also face that challenge too. If they're like, I know I need to make a change, I don't know how to do it. I also don't have time to do it because I have all these other things that I have to do. And I think that's probably part of the problem too, is like, I'm just going to keep going like this. I don't have time to really focus on myself and do this kind of thing. It's going to take too much. It's going to be, it's going to drive me crazy. Like, it's going to be too much. I'm not gonna be able to do this. Stephanie online. She's virtual. And you can have the same impact virtually. Like, I think we've found recently over the past, what is it, 5 years or so, virtual engagement and speaking with somebody like Stephanie, like even like this morning, getting up early, like we got up early to record this episode today and be together to do this for everybody. And it truly is for everybody, but it's just like, find that window of time that works. And like, Stephanie's online. Like, you can find her on her website. Stephanie, let's give them your website, vibewithstephanie.com. There's so much there's a wealth of information on her site. It's so, like, the first time I saw it, I was like, this is amazing. You can feel the energy from the site that it's like, this is a positive thing that you can do. And even if you don't feel like, oh, well, I only drink like a couple of glasses of wine a day, okay, fine. But are you interested in talking about this? Like, maybe you could, with clarity, get through the rest of your evening. You don't have to do that, because it does dull the senses. And even if you're not a mom, like, it dulls the senses. It really, like, it takes away from what you yourself could really be achieving here and doing for yourself. Like, can you replace that bar run with maybe going to the gym, go for a walk, do something for yourself, do something creative? Like, there's a whole part of you that is being subdued because you're ingesting alcohol versus like, really being your authentic self, as Stephanie said.
I have so many resources. So a couple of ideas. One, if you want to get 7 easy quit tips, I have a little ebook that's just little bitty, simple ways that you can use to get sober, even if it's just for the day or the week or the hour. You can go to info.vibewithstephanie.com and you'll put in your email address and I will send you the ebook automatically. You'll get it in like immediately. Then I have Sober October coming up, which is so much fun. It's all about personal development. We do fitness challenges and giveaways. And even if you're just sober curious, it is really fun. I have women that just came for fun and wanted to do all the fitness challenges and get the community and have some accountability. And they're still sober now. And this was like my first 2 years ago and last Sober October also. So you may just come for fun and find out that you just want to change your life and, keep it that way. But there's no pressure. But if you go to vibewithstephanie.com, you can check into the Sober October. It is a blast. And it's just fun having a bunch of women around who are doing the same thing, taking walks every day. We're challenging you to do fun things, working out. There's fitness trackers. There's a workbook that's included. So come check that out. And then the Glow Big Sober podcast. So if you don't have time and you feel like you can devote a whole month, check out the podcast because there are so many tips on there that can just help you start to slowly incorporate it and slowly plant the seed and give you ideas for replacements and what to do when you get antsy and what to expect. That's a big one. I remember when I was getting sober, I was looking up like, okay, well, I'm 24 hours sober. Now what? And there was like not a lot of information. They're like, nothing. What I do is like tell you, okay, day 1 is going to be like this. Day 17 is going to be like this. Like, here's what to expect. Here's how to get through it here. Because like I said, there's just things that you don't expect that when they come up, if you're not expecting it, you're going to end up drinking again. So I had a lady who was she was day 14 sober and went to get her photographs printed at Walgreens in front of, it was CVS, and there's the wine right behind the photos right there. That's the aisle. And she ended up having to wait and something happened. The printer broke. Somebody had to fix it. And she said, and grabbed herself a bottle of wine and drank on day 14. Yeah. And I would have, if we had been in communication, I would have said, you can't be anywhere on day 14 except work and home. Definitely not standing in front of the wine aisle because it's like speaking to you, especially on day 14. So it's important to have somebody around who can let you know what's going on. And I just looked, I wanted to share this app with you called I Am Sober. It's a free app. They will ask you to pay. But don't pay. It's free. Do not pay. There's no need. I've had it for 2 years and I just opened it up and I'm 700 days sober today.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy?
I every time you say it, I get chills. Like, because it's I think such a big deal. It's you really, I feel like you should be screaming it from the rooftops. Like,
I'm going to be crying today. I can tell, and I'm not a big crier, but I'm going to be crying.
I mean, today. I keep crying with you, and I'm
then for the smoking app, I wanted to share was Smoke Free. And because we were talking about how, certain amount of times and certain percentage. Let me show you this real quick. It'll show you. Okay, so I'm smoke free 2 years, 13 days. I actually quit smoking before I quit drinking because I was like, I felt so crummy inside that I wanted it to go away. I wanted to feel better, but I prayed it wasn't the alcohol. I was like, surely it's a cigarette. Like, this is why I feel so gross. Everything will fall into place. Like, it can't be the alcohol. So I quit smoking first. And then I was like, damn, I still feel terrible. Like, let me just do both. And I did both, like 13 days, I guess. So, or, maybe, I don't know, 20 days apart. But the Smoke Free app shows you decreased lung cancer, decreased risk of heart attack and heart disease. So, and how much money you save. So this says, I save, let me see the alcohol one, how much money I saved. I am sober. Savings. Ooh.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And that
was over $7,000.
Yeah. And that was on all I said was I spent $10 a day for my big old Merlot bottle was $10 a day. I didn't talk about the brunches and the other holidays.
Right. Everything else. Yeah.
A lot of money.
Oh, okay, honey. Mommy's recording. Okay. She said you're cute. They like your look.
Thank you.
My kids popped in for the podcast. That's always nice. Well, I actually wanted to ask you too, for anyone thinking about this and wanting to go down this path, because it is a little scary. And I remember when I had quit smoking when I was like 25, I want to say like freaking 24, 25, that I tried 3 times. I was like 3 or 4 times before I was able to actually kick it. Did you encounter something like that where like you tried it and then you relapsed? And the reason why I want to talk about that is because I want people to understand, like, you have to have some grace with yourself during the process and during the journey, and forgive yourself, but also know, like, I still need to do this and move on and move forward.
So much to say there. There was a long time where I couldn't get past 3 days quitting drinking. I was like, I really need to quit. I wrecked my car last night. I got a DUI. I woke up in jail. Like, I really, really should quit drinking. And 3 days later, I'm at Walgreens buying another big old, $10 bottle of Merlot and a pack of cigarettes. And I couldn't stop the cycle. And so that led to shame and regret and guilt, and just couldn't believe I was stuck in this cycle. And then, like I said, there was a point where I was like, you know what, forget it. I can't quit. I'm not going to quit. I don't want to quit. It's too hard. I'm not going to quit. I'll just have to, lessen it or keep it more secret or whatever. And so every single time I tried and failed, it led to depression and denial and shame and all those things. And then my son's 5th birthday, that was not the first time I blacked out or the 50th time I blacked out. But
Right.
for some reason, that time was like, I have to be done here. But the next weekend, I had a trip to Texas and still went and drank my face off, blacked out, and was really disgusted. And on the plane home is when I was like, this is it, I'm done. On the red eye, I was drinking wine and got home, crawled into bed with him. It was like midnight or 1 a.m. on Monday morning, and was crying and just said, I can't do this anymore. And then that's the day I quit for the 2 years. So it takes some time. It takes the heartbreak. I want you to know that everything you try, every challenge you do, every PDF ebook you download, every podcast you listen to, all of that plays a part in the end game. So don't ever think of it as failure, as this isn't working for me, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot, and you don't have to hit rock bottom necessarily, because I hit rock bottom like a long time ago, a few times, and that wasn't what stopped me from drinking. So don't think that you have to hit some crazy rock bottom. It's just a compilation of the things are going to eventually. And somebody said in my group yesterday, Sober Vibes with Stephanie, it's a free Facebook group on Facebook, Sober Vibes. He said, and I have one guy member, Joe, and no other men are allowed, but he's been there since the beginning. And he said that he found out in rehab that it does take 5 to 7 years once that one seed has been planted for you to finally quit. And that really stuck with me, because I was out contemplating my quitting and my alcohol problem for 5 to 7 years on that back porch, smoking and drinking, contemplating whether I had a problem. And then eventually, so let that sink in, that if you try once and it doesn't work, no biggie. It's a learning experience. Try it again.
That I love that. And I want everyone to really hear that. And if you somehow find this episode today and somehow this episode like popped up on your, podcast feed, like, there's a reason why you're listening to this. I'm incredibly, like, I very much believe in like being in alignment, and that things come to you and come into your path when they're meant to come into your path. And if you're listening to this, or you happen to find Stephanie on your own, like, that means something. It means something when you're like, this information is being put in front of me, and you have to pay attention to the signals. If you have been, as Stephanie said, if you even thought about it once, like, oh, maybe I should stop doing this, that's your first like little inkling, like, really start thinking about it then. Like, maybe do some research. You're not comfortable fully stopping yet. Okay, fine. Look into it. Start talking to people. Start maybe trying to remove yourself from certain situations that is going to lead to like blackout situations. Like, there's a lot of little baby steps that lead up to the success of being able to do something across the board in general, always, for all things. everyone always sees the success at the end of the tunnel. What Stephanie's highlighting here for everyone is that she's been on a journey for a really long time to get to where she is. She did not wake up yesterday and all of a sudden become this fabulous person that I'm talking to today. This has taken time. And she does look fabulous. And my daughters, when they popped in, just said, by the way, she's like, they literally were like, she's really cute.
That is amazing.
They're very fashion focused. And Stephanie has like a whole vibe going. Like, I'm like early morning mom vibe. Stephanie's like, looks legit. She's amazing. So I wanted to highlight that because I know we're coming a little bit closer to like, you know, wrapping. And I just want to highlight that part, like that it is a journey. It is not just a one and done situation. If you're trying to disengage from, you know, alcohol and you're trying to walk away from that and you're starting to see like, you know, I think this is a problem. Even if you haven't stopped yet and you haven't taken that first day to say like, I'm not doing this anymore, reach out to Stephanie. Like reach out to her, tell her like, I kind of am thinking about it. There's no judgment. She's been through it. Like there is no judgment. We know how hard this is going to be. And, you know, but the journey to get there is going to be, it's going to be something you get through. I'll use her as the example here. Like it's truly amazing to be able to make that shift. And then not only have you made that change, but I'm going to talk about you for a minute to your face. Not only have you made this change, but you're taking what you've done here and you're helping other women to get through this. And that's incredibly important because the whole reason behind this podcast was because we wanted to highlight things like this that are not talked about really openly. Now it's starting to become more open and like people are starting to address things. But like, you know, as you mentioned a couple times, there's this whole like mommy wine culture and it's like, okay, it's fun. Like, oh, we're all on a play date. Let's all like crack a bottle of wine. I still make jokes about stuff like that, even though I haven't drank in like 2 or 3 years. Like I still make jokes about like, oh, I'll bring you a bottle of champagne. Sure, I'll bring you a bottle of champagne, but I'm not going to drink the champagne. Like it's for you guys. Like, you know, there's a lot there to it. So if you do have a sense that you're like, I feel like I might want to walk away from this. I'm not really sure how. It's kind of like a habit. It's like chewing gum at this point. Like I just do it, you know, when I'm like casually just doing something else. Start to really think about that. And, you know, check out Stephanie's website, vibewithstephanie.com. I read through it and I was like, this is amazing. Like she has to come on. I'm so glad, Stephanie, that you joined me this morning. Like really grateful to you coming on here and sharing your story. It was really incredibly impactful.
Thank you so much. I feel my heart feels really open. And that's one thing I love about sobriety is before I didn't really have a lot of emotion. I was numb on purpose. A lot of us drink for trauma reasons too, or just to, you know, numb things. And so it just feels so amazing to even, I wouldn't be here at all, speaking at all. And
yeah,
you know,
you wouldn't be awake actually, right? At this point.
Well, maybe no. I would always wake up and be somewhat productive, but very hungover and foggy.
Yeah.
But mostly it's the softening of my heart that really just was a surprising. I didn't expect to become softer and more human. So it feels really good. And I'm able to accept compliments now. Before I was just so self-depreciating and really felt so scummy about myself. So that was a really nice compliment. Thank you so much.
Oh my God.
No, I wanted to give another little tip for if you're thinking about drinking, if you felt the nudge or you're not ready, go on to Sober Talk. Okay. I'm on TikTok as Vibe with Stephanie. And if you just hashtag sober or Vibe with Stephanie, you're going to find other sober talks and it's really fun. And it's like funny, you know, we do it and we deliver our messages in funny ways and it'll just show you that you're not alone and you'll see that it'll start to open up the whole world for you. But I have people that said, you know, a year ago, I started following you on TikTok and now I've been sober for this, you know, 200 and something days. And I never knew that, you know, and they're like, yeah, you helped me. Somebody will pop up like recently and wrote, yeah, this account helped me get sober. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it really just having those little seeds planted and having fun, cute people like you deliver the message makes you feel like, oh, I'm not a troll that belongs in a basement church. Like you're like, this is actually cool. Fine. Like we're fine.
If you ever need compliments, I'm here for you because I think what you're doing is so amazing. Like you're helping so many people. Like what you just said, people are reaching out. Like the messaging you're putting out there, like, it's not even just like, oh, you actually have met them. They're just following you, and it's changing their lives. Like, you're literally changing people's lives like that. It's mind blowing, this impact that you're having on all these people. It's amazing. So keep doing what you're doing. I hope anyone who's listening to this particular episode, if you've even considered it, like, check out Stephanie's website, vibewithstephanie.com. She's on all the social platforms. So I think it sounds like Vibe with Stephanie is your handle across the board. Is that right?
That's it. I can't believe
Vibe with Stephanie. You truly will feel like you're high vibing, because I keep getting goosebumps and chills as she's talking. So you all are probably going to feel the same way when you start engaging with her, because she has this light and this electricity coming out of her that's like, you can't not want to be involved. So I highly, strongly recommend reach out to her. And even if you're not comfortable with like a one-on-one, just start following her, because what she's doing is amazing. I can't even say enough about it. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You made my whole day. Thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you to all the listeners. Thank you so much for sticking with me during this journey of Steel Roses podcast. Greatly appreciate all of you. And I hope that you found this episode engaging and helpful. Until next time.